Hi there, my name is Wade Murray. Welcome to the Great Green North podcast, the podcast where we talk about everything about lawns with a Canadian twist. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. And here we go, everybody. Welcome back to the Great Green North podcast, episode number 8. It has been a while. This is the first episode of 2023, and today we're going to be going over a whole bunch of different lawn stuff. Trying a different source for the video here today. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you can get the video portion of the podcast instead of just staring at a picture. But for those of you listening, thank you for listening. You can find this podcast wherever you find your podcast. Anchor's, iTunes. Well, I guess Anchor is now Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. We're available on all those options here, so you can get the updated, Great Green North, very newest episode of the Great Green North podcast. For those of you who don't know what the Great Green North podcast is, this is the podcast. We try to do it monthly here, where we basically just discuss in real time what's going on in my lawn. We answer some of the questions submitted through you guys, and we have some more long-form discussions about stuff going on in the lawn care industry. If you guys didn't listen to the last episode where we had Ryan DeMay on, that was a really great episode. I definitely suggest listening to it, especially if you are new. There's a lot of really good stuff there for beginners getting into lawn care, stuff about Great Green North, stuff about stuff Ryan's done. Lots of great questions answered in that episode. So without further ado, I think it's time to get into the update segment. Let's talk about what's been going on in my lawn. All right. So right now we are in probably what is the worst month of the lawn season. We are sitting in at the time we're recording, it is March 11th. We are currently sitting under about 2.5 feet of snow at my house. We had no snow for a good portion of February and January. And then all of a sudden, the last week of February rolled around, and we did a Uno Reverso card on that one, and the snow just started falling and falling and falling. So we're now catching up on our snowfall totals, which is really good because we were way behind on our snowfall totals. And that snowfall total in the winter, when that snow melts in the spring, that's your spring water basically. All that snow melts, it adds to the water table, and it allows you to have a decently wet spring. So if you have a dry winter and you don't have a lot of precipitation, that's going to negatively affect your spring, as you're not going to have that precipitation melting, which is then going to cause more problems come spring. So I'm glad that we're actually catching up on our snow a little bit. We're getting a little more snow. I think it's very good. I think it's going to help us throughout this lawn season, because there's nothing worse than a dry spring, getting started on a shitty foot, having to water all the time. There's just nothing worse than that. So if we can, keep this trend going with a little bit more snow, I think we got plenty now that this can hopefully work through the good part of the future, and we can keep this water going. So that's what's been going on here. Temperature wise, we have not been very cold this winter. We had about 1 week of -20. Other than that, that's all in Celsius. Other than that, we've been hitting around that freezing mark, 1, 2, go up a couple degrees, 3, 4, 5, go down a couple degrees, -1, -2, -3, but mainly hovering around that 1 and 2 degree mark. And I think that's probably a decent, it's around seasonal for this time of year. Not really much else to say with that. With the lawn, I did get to see the lawn at the second last week of February. The snow melted off and it was completely bare, and it looked really good. I am seeing a little bit of snow mold, and I think the reason why that is happening is just, as I said, the lack of snowfall we've had. All the snow we've had this year has been wet, and wet snow is the worst for creating snow mold, because you have that gap in between the snow layer and what's below the snow, and that's where that fungus grows, right, is in that air gap where that moisture is trapped between the snow and the grass, and that's just a breeding ground for snow mold. So I was seeing a little bit of that, but that was before the heavy snow came, so I haven't really seen the lawn since. But I can't imagine it's going to be too bad. Looking around at what's going on, some of the people a little farther south of me that are already melted. winter hasn't been too bad and the grass is all looking pretty good. So I have a feeling that we might have a bit of an early start to the spring this year. Knock on wood. I'm really hoping because of the fact that it just wasn't really a blockbuster winter. Anything to write home about. Really looking for an early start to the spring this year because we got tons of great things coming up this spring. So let's talk about what's going on in the YouTube channel and the podcast, everything. So a little update on the scheduling. I'm hoping to do one of these podcasts once a month. I'm also hoping to upload at least one video every week, and I'm hoping to have one short every week as well. So hopefully that will help a little bit get back into the content here. I got really busy in the fall and wasn't able to catch up on as much content as I wanted. So I want to make sure that I'm staying on top of it this spring. So making sure I can upload videos out here for you guys. Coming into the 2023 lawn season, we got a couple awesome things coming up here that I'm going to kind of tease here on the podcast. My partnership with GrowForge is continuing, and it's going to grow a little bigger this year. We're going to be doing 100% liquid on my front lawn. As well as that, we're going to be doing a project lawn, 2 project lawns actually, sponsored by GrowForge. And these project lawns are going to be treated 100% with liquid products. So we're going to be going into a lawn that has not really been treated, not really been taken care of for a couple of years. The one lawn has pretty much hasn't been fertilized in 4 or 5 years. The other lawn that we're doing gets fertilized about twice a year with the Scott's program. So we're going to be taking it off the granular program. We're going to be throwing it on the GrowForge products, and we're going to be seeing the results. And we're also going to be talking to the homeowners a little bit on camera, just getting their opinion on what they think of these liquid products as well, because I was blown away last year at how amazing these GrowForge products were. And basically I just want to promote them as much as possible because I really do think that they're a great solution up here in Canada for a liquid fertilizer. We don't really have a lot of options, so I was really impressed by that. So I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about my continuing partnership with GrowForge. The people over there are great, very friendly. They're treating me very well. So not only am I happy to support a company that makes amazing products that I love, but I'm also happy to support a company that treats me very well as well, right? So if they're friendly people, I know they're going to treat me well. They're going to treat their customers well. That's just another reason to help support that company. As I said as well, only liquids in the front yard this year. I want to do that 100% liquid testing. Last year I was pretty close to 100% liquid, but I did put 2 granular applications down in the spring before I started with the GrowForge products. So we're going to be reviewing a couple more new GrowForge products they have coming up on the market this year too as well, and talking about that. And there's going to be a video coming up on the channel next week talking about the difference between liquid and granular and which one would I pick. We're going to talk about that a little bit today as well. And then finally, the backyard's going to be the same old, putting down granular back there. We're going to be trying to dial in my irrigation a little better this year, as well as wetting agent testing. So that was something that I just kind of broke into at the very end of the summer last year, was trying out some different wetting agents. I really want to keep going into that. I want to make sure that I can use these wetting agents to definitely help better my lawn all around. To me, it seems like a no-brainer. Most areas, watering restrictions are becoming a more standard thing, and we all don't want a $600 water bill at the end of the year. So if there's stuff that we can do that can help reduce the amount of input we need but give us the same results, then that's a great option. So wetting agents is someone I talked about with Ryan DeMay when he was on the podcast. I'm going to be doing a little more research into them, and really want to try to dial that in, educate you guys on wetting agents as well this year and how much they can do. So that's pretty much the update. Plenty of great things coming up here on the channel. I'm really excited. 2023 is going to be our best season yet. We really want to help grow Great Green North. We made great leaps in 2022 from where we were in 2021, but 2023 is just going to be even better. So I am really excited to keep growing and keep talking about grass. So without further ado, let's cut all the company chit chat and let's talk about some grass stuff. All right, so I uploaded a video a couple of days ago at the time of recording about chems in the lawn. Now I keep getting lots of questions about what chem do I treat this with, and how can I treat this weed, and what chem can I spray on these weeds. And by chem, I'm referring to selective herbicides and pesticides. Basically, that would be your 2,4-D, that herbicide that you can buy that kills the weeds but not the grass. And for those of you who don't know, up here in Canada, a lot of these herbicides have we have a ban on all registered chemicals in Ontario, which is the province I live in, which basically means that you cannot purchase or use any registered pesticide or herbicide for a residential turf application. So we cannot purchase them, we cannot apply them. Golf courses they're very strongly regulated. Sports turf is also still very strongly regulated. And I talked about this a lot when Ryan DeMay was on the podcast. He talked about some of the bans that are starting to enter in the U.S. Like he said, there was some bans in Connecticut, and there's a lot of great research that we were talking about too of new options coming into the industry on how we can expand and treat things without chems. So going back to the video I uploaded a video saying we need to rethink this time to rethink these weed control bans. So there's a lot of negativity involved in these weed control bans. There's a lot of people thinking, this is just dumb. I should just be able to spray whatever I want. Now I can't have a nice lawn just because they banned these chemicals. They've ruined everything for me, blah, 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 blah. And whether you think the bans are a good idea is here nor there. Whether you think that you should be able to spray whatever you want is here nor there as well. What I'm trying to talk about right now is not giving up. So I see a lot of times there's a lot of people just straight up giving up, saying that they're done, because of these bans, they just can't do it. It's just impossible. And I talked about this when Ryan DeMay was on the podcast as well. But there's plenty of amazing things you can do without chems that can take your lawn to that next level. So for example, my backyard, my front yard, have never been any more than spot sprayed with Fiesta, which is basically a concentrated iron herbicide that you selectively spray on weeds, and it slowly kills them. It takes about 3 or 4 applications, but it does work. So what I wanted to do just kind of here is I wanted to read some of your responses from this video. So I put this video out there saying, hey, maybe it's time to rethink, focus on cultural practices, focus on the lawn, not the weeds. There's plenty that you can do to help better your lawn that doesn't include spraying a chem. And even for my friends that do have access to chems, maybe next time you have a problem, it's time to rethink whether your best solution is just to reach to that shelf and grab that chem, or whether there's a better solution that involves not spraying a chem. Because no matter how long this prolongs, eventually everything is going to be regulated. It's coming sooner rather than later. So I was interested to see how some people would respond to this. I really just kind of wanted to get this message out there. I heard on the Turfcast podcast with Ryan DeMay and Ryan Knorr that they were saying some Canadians were talking about not being able to have access to chems, and Americans talking about not being able to have access to chems. So I was interested to see what the response to this video was. So I got a comment from Performance Lawn Care saying, awesome video. We're based out of Angus, Ontario, and tend to struggle with customers assuming traditional pesticides are the only option. Although Fiesta, which is what I was talking about, is very expensive, we do use it combined with proper fertilization schedules that can help push green grass through stressful situations. Fungus and chinch bugs tend to be a struggle, but we manage to transform many lawns with just basic cultural practices that do not include pesticides. Education of the customer is key. We look at the lawn as a whole as it is viewed by the customer and don't just focus on the bad areas. And this is very, very nice comment. So shout out to Performance Lawn Care. This is exactly what the message I was trying to get out there is. You sit there and you talk with the customer or your homeowner or anybody, your friend, and they're just going, man, like just look at this lawn. I got all these dead spots. I got all these weeds. and there's not a lot of grass here, and I think it's just a lost cause. I'm giving up. And that is the worst thing you can do. As soon as you give up, it's just going downhill from there. You're never going to make it back. What you really need to be doing is you really need to be keeping on it, even though you might be losing it a little bit. As long as your lawn is 30% grass, you can still take that lawn back just as easy as anything else. Best thing to do, hire a lawn care professional like Performance Lawn Care if you're located in Angus, Ontario. Hire a lawn care professional to come in and spray the Fiesta or whatever they're allowed to spray in your location. Give them 2-3 applications just to spray out the heavy of the weeds. That's going to allow you to slowly be able to take your lawn back into your own control. Once they've sprayed out the heavy of the weeds, you start regularly fertilizing and properly mowing, you can easily just take that lawn back, and now that lawn is within your control very, very quickly. You don't need, to keep spraying. 1 or 2 applications is more than enough to get that back in. And I know people are saying, well, hey, I thought you said don't use chems. Why are you encouraging people to hire a company to spray? Well, I wouldn't really say Fiesta is necessarily a registered. Well, it's not a registered herbicide. It is just iron, and sometimes there is that point where it's just too heavy. But you don't even need to get the people to come and spray. The other thing you can do as well is just start pushing your lawn with fertilizer. Turf grass grows on the side of a highway where nobody even touches it, and it fights out the weeds. So your grass is a lot more resilient than those weeds. Those weeds are opportunistic. They take over when the grass is weak, when the grass is hurt, when the grass is struggling. And most of the time we see that happen in the summer when it gets really hot and the grass struggles. So those opportunistic weeds will take over when you get in that hot season. But as soon as that great prime growing season comes back for your cool season grass, for example, early spring, you will have no problem, keeping the grass healthy and alive. No problem whatsoever. I can guarantee that. Another great comment we had here: having a nice, healthy, and thick lawn is the key. I have a big jug of par 3 in Ontario, Canada as well. I haven't sprayed it on the lawn for a few years. Very little weeds that do come up in the spring. I just manually pull with a Fisker's weed puller. I do get crabgrass in the summer though. I'm thinking about trying Preemergent this year, something I've never done. I would like to try the good stuff through the US. Though, what would you recommend for Preemergent that we have access to? So, to answer, again, great comment. Focus on the lawn, not the weeds. Focusing on those weeds is just going to hold you back. Focusing on the lawn is going to give you better results. It's going to give you more confidence to go out there, and you're not going to end up struggling in the end and not being able to do it. Better confidence. You're going to get a better overall result, and you're going to be happier in the end. You're going to have a healthier lawn. So, as he said, he has a jug of par 3, which is a registered pesticide. You can technically still purchase this sometimes in Ontario through farm supply stores because it is still allowed to be sprayed at farms, or you can purchase it through a golf course or whatever because it is still allowed to be used there, or a sports turf application. Some people still have this stuff kicking around, but as he said, he has a big jug of par 3 and he chooses not to spray it. He just pulls the weeds manually with a Fisker's weed puller, and this is another great option. I do get the odd plant of crabgrass in my backyard every year. It's mostly gone now. Last year, I don't think I had any. The year before, I think I had 5 or 6. But as long as you get you get one of those stand-up Fisker's weed pullers, as he's talking about, you get a shovel, and you just remove that plant, making sure you get the entire taproot. It only takes 15-20 minutes, and it's a lot less work than actually trying to spray it yourself. So back when I first got into lawn care, my backyard was riddled with weeds one winter after a really, really hot winter. I wasn't irrigating. And what I did was every day I went out for 2 hours, and I had one of those Fisker's weed pullers, and I had a bag, and I methodically went up and down my backyard and pulled every single weed I saw. And For those of you who don't know, my backyard is 150 by 150 feet. So my backyard itself is almost 15,000 square feet. It's a big backyard. It's not something easy. It took weeks to do. However, my weed pressure since then has been little to none. It just doesn't come in, and they don't come in as strong. And ever since I started irrigating, that helped minimize my weed pressure as well. So it's all about minimizing your risk. Think about the Canada Food Guide, for example. The Canada Food Guide tells you that you should eat 12 cups of grains a day or whatever. You don't have to eat 12 cups of grain a day. You can do whatever you want. The food guide is not a legislated law that you're going to get thrown in jail if you don't do it. It's just a guide there. What the food guide is telling you is that if you don't eat those 12 cups of grain a day, for example, you might not be as healthy as if you did. And it's the same thing when it comes to lawn care. Obviously, if you can irrigate and you can have a healthy, thick lawn, you are going to have no weeds. And I can guarantee it. If you have a healthy, thick lawn, it's irrigated, the weed pressure will be pushed right out by the health of your lawn. And that is minimizing your risk. However, some things happen. People get busy. People can't afford to do some fertilizer. People can't afford to water their lawn. Well, that is greatening your risk in the same sense as if you don't eat those 12 cups of grains a day, you'll be at higher risk for health issues down the road. If you don't irrigate, now you're at higher risk of weed pressure in the summer. If you don't fertilize in the spring, now you're at a higher risk of weed pressure in the summer. If you don't fertilize in the fall, now you'll be at a higher risk of weed pressure next summer. These are the risk factors that we can control to help push those weeds out. In the end, unless we build like 30-foot concrete fences with roofs over our lawns to protect the weed seeds from our neighbors from blowing in, the weeds will always come. As soon as Mother Nature kicks up those windstorms, those dandelion seeds blow from wherever. In my town, they blow from the city parks. And they blow right into your lawn, and they fertilize your lawn with weed seeds everywhere. And there's nothing you can do about that. But what you can do is you can have a healthy, great, sustainable lawn that can protect you from that coming in. So, to answer his question about pre-emergence, and then we'll probably go into a little bit about pre-emergent talk here. What is a pre-emergent, first of all, for those of you who don't know? A pre-emergent is a pre-emergent herbicide, a herbicide that would be put down before the plants emerge. So different than par 3, 2,4-D, or quinclorac would be considered a post-emergent herbicide. It's sprayed after the weeds emerge from the soil. Pre-emergent basically is sprayed on the soil or put down in a granular form. It creates a chemical barrier on top of the soil that prevents those weeds from coming up in the spring. Pre-emergents don't necessarily work 100% of the time. There's always breakthrough. They only last about 4 months. And the biggest thing with pre-emergents is always timing. You want to put down your pre-emergents before those weed seeds start breaking through, which means you need to put down your pre-emergent before soil temps hit 50 degrees Fahrenheit. However, that is very difficult to time sometimes because of how fluctuant our spring weather can be. So making sure that you're planning your pre-emergent and when you're putting it down, if you're planning on putting one down this year, is always something very difficult to do. Up here in Canada, options for pre-emergence, the only thing that we have available to us is cornmeal gluten. Now, what this is it's a byproduct of the production of corn. And for those of you who don't know, when they harvest corn, the combine takes in the stalk, it removes the kernels from the ear itself, and then it ejects the ears, the stalks, and everything else out the back of the combine. However, because of all that residue from the ears, the stalks, and everything on that field, and the residue from the corn being ground up, it creates this cornmeal kind of, ground up product, and it's normally used as feed for livestock as well. But because this is broadcast on the field once it comes out the back end of the combine, the fields most of the time have to be tilled before they can plant the following season's crop into it. And the reason is you have to break up this natural barrier that ends up covering the soil that will prevent your seeds from emerging the following spring. Now, when we're talking about cornmeal and applying cornmeal on your lawn, it's the exact same idea. You're trying to recreate this natural barrier. Basically, you're trying to shade out your roots so any weed seeds can't get sun, they won't germinate, they won't grow. Because of this, you know, when you're thinking about cutting out a corn plant that's 6 to 8 feet tall, sometimes 12 feet tall, and you're ejecting that out the combine and you're covering this field, you got so much material, it's very easy to cover the field. When you're getting a 25-pound bag of cornmeal gluten ground and ready for you to use, it's not that much material in the end. It's a small fraction of what would be a lot larger scale on a combine. So because of this, the application rate for cornmeal gluten is around 14 to 15 pounds per 1,000 square feet, which is a hell of a lot of material going down. I think I had done a calculation that for me to do my backyard in corn gluten, I think I would need like 15 pounds of cornmeal gluten for 15,000 square feet. So that's a lot. That's a lot of material going down at once. And the other thing about putting this down in the spring, I know we talked about this a little bit in the fall, but pushing growth in the fall is always better than pushing growth in the spring, because fall growth always converts into root growth. However, spring growth normally converts into shoot growth, which is everything you see above the soil, your leaf surface, your crown, everything like that. Your root growth is all below the soil. Cornmeal gluten, because it is a natural product, it does have a chemical breakdown. I believe that chemical breakdown is like 804 or something. Out of those big numbers on the bag, the NP and the K. So that means that it's 8% nitrogen that is in that bag, which means that if you're putting it down at the rates that they want you to put it down at, you're putting about almost a full pound of nitrogen directly into your lawn at the very beginning of spring. And that means that you're going to have a massive flush of growth as soon as you put that down. And by massive flush of growth, I mean massive flush of growth. You're not going to be able to keep up on mowing. As soon as that first rainfall hits and you get those really wet springs, your lawn's going to be growing so fast, you're going to be mowing like every other day. And not only that, but all this energy being used in the spring to grow all this shoot growth is not getting converted into root growth. And what gets you through the summer is those roots. Those shoots don't do anything for you in the summer. So basically what you're doing is you're creating a whole bunch of thatch, and every time you cut off that layer in the shoots, if you're bagging, you're removing that nutrients from the lawn. It's not getting returned back into your lawn. So you're not really getting a very good return for the nutrients that you have to put down in the spring in order to put down corn gluten, which kind of sucks with the product, but it is something that you have to think about when you're putting it down. So I guess what I'm trying to say here when it involves putting down corn gluten in the spring is that corn gluten is something that you can easily put down in the spring if you really want to. And Mark, if you want to put down corn gluten in the spring, go right ahead. If you have a smaller lawn, it will be very easy for you. And if you're looking at where to pick it up, a local farm supply store, TSC, I believe Scott sells it now too, but I would probably go try to get it from your farm supply store or Peevely Mart, I think is what TSC is called now. It'll be a lot cheaper for you than the Scott stuff. And maybe what I've done in the past is dial the rate back a titch. So you're looking at like maybe 8 pounds per 1,000 instead of 14. But again, you're limiting your success at that point by dialing it back. And it's hard to tell whether it's really worth it in the end. So what I would say, Mark, is if you have a couple crabgrass or you're struggling with crabgrass, there's a couple things that you can do to help prevent crabgrass in the summer. So for example, crabgrass reseeds itself. So start bagging your clippings as soon as those seeds come out, and you'll bag those clippings, you'll remove them from the lawn. That will help lower the populations of the crabgrass plants for years to come. Pulling the plants by hand, digging them out by hand helps too. If it's a really bad crabgrass problem, you could spray it out with Roundup, remove those patches and resod. It's another great option. There's plenty of great options that you can do. But if you're saying that you have a healthy, thick lawn and you're not really looking at spraying a lot of par 3 to prevent any other weeds, I don't really think crabgrass is going to be a huge worry for you. I would say stick off the Preemergent for this summer or for this spring. Focus on get some GrowForge products or get some granular fertilizers and try to just spoon feed those nutrients early in the spring. Try to get your lawn really well set up for summer. And again, a healthy, great lawn in the summer stops those opportunistic weeds such as crabgrass from getting in. So having a healthy lawn in the summer, irrigating a little bit in the summer will help prevent your crabgrass problem. Maybe for this year, bag those clippings maybe for the next couple of years, lower your crabgrass populations down, way down, and then hopefully 4 or 5 years. Crabgrass is an interesting weed because, well, it's not really a weed, it's a grass. Same with quackgrass. The seeds can sit dormant in the soil for up to 5 years. So basically a seed that came off a crabgrass plant in 2020 can sit dormant in the soil and germinate in 2025. So you can have seasons where your crabgrass pressure is non-existent, and you can have seasons where your crabgrass pressure is relentless. And it just depends on when that heat gets turned on. If that heat and humidity gets turned on, like first week of June, last week of May, that's like the perfect kick on for crabgrass, because crabgrass doesn't germinate till it gets closer to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So as soon as that heat gets kicked on, that's when the crabgrass gets ready to go. And as soon as that crabgrass gets ready to go, that's when you're going to see those problems. So working out that crabgrass a little bit might help you coming into the future. All right, so let's talk about some spring lawn strategies here for a little bit, and making a lawn plan. So for those of we're heading into spring, and for those lawn enthusiasts such as me, this is the time where you're starting to get really excited and you're getting a little giddy and you're getting a little impatient, and every day you're standing outside and you're waiting for that snow to melt so you can jump outside and you can get going on the lawn, and you're just waiting to get going on the lawn so you can get you just want to get back into it. It's been so long, that 4 months, you're getting that cabin fever, you're ready to get back into it. Well, one thing you can do now to prepare you for the season is make a spring lawn plan. So I like to encourage people to document things, write things down. That's part of the reason I make videos. It's a living document of everything that's happened in my lawn over the years. If I see a problem, a lot of times I'll go back and look at videos from past years and go, oh, okay, it's around this time that this weed came out and blah 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 blah, or that spot was dead last year. I could see it in this video. There must be something going on there, blah, blah, blah. So this is good things to have written down. So if you can write stuff down, take videos, take pictures, make a Google Photos album with all your lawn pictures, all your lawn stuff. So then, when you go to show somebody a picture of your kids, it's not just full of grass pictures. But what we're talking about here is spring lawn strategies. So making a plan for the spring is very important. So think about what are your major obstacles coming into this season. So do you have a lot of weed pressure, for example? Last year your lawn was filtered with weeds. And what you're going to need to do this spring is get your lawn in the best position to fight those weeds in the summer. Another one example would be, what is your lawn newly seeded? Was your lawn newly seeded last October? And your strategy this spring is to get your lawn in the correct position so you can thicken it up and make it more healthy. So then going into next year, you can have a better overall lawn. That's another spring strategy. Another one would be, do you have a healthy lawn, but you're looking to use a little bit less water? coming into this season, and that would push you to want to maybe create a plan that's going to focus on root growth and help strengthen your lawn in the summer so you don't have to use as much water. These are all spring lawn strategies. Think about what I'm doing. I know I have videos, and that's why I separate my lawn the way I do. But for those of you, thinking maybe this is the year I'm going to try liquid, weigh those options in your head and come up with a plan. Okay, I'm going to try all liquid on the front. I'm going to do all granular on the back. I'm going to look at both of them. I'm going to pick which one I like better. And then next year I'm going to, keep that the way it is. Not all of us want to be like me or someone like Ryan Knorr, who has 8 different experiments going on in their lawn at the same time. A lot of people want to find what's the best and stick to it. So, if you're making a plan for the spring, make sure you're finding what's best so you can stick to it, because that's going to help you in the end the most. So making that plan for the spring for your lawn is really important. Another thing that you can add to that plan, is problems you had last year or problems you remember from last spring. Last spring, the spot in the back right corner of my back lawn underneath that oak tree was always thin. Revisit this spring. Maybe it's time for a little bit of overseeding. Maybe, you need to limb up that oak tree a little bit. Maybe, grass underneath that oak tree just isn't going to work, and you're better to turn it into a garden. These are all things to consider and to focus on in the spring. The spring is all about getting yourself ready for the summer, because the summer is that stress season, and the fall is also all about getting yourself ready for the summer. So the spring is that kind of last chance to set up your lawn perfectly for next summer, because every year you're trying to set up for the summer. And if you talk to golf course superintendents, they'll tell you the same thing. They spend all fall getting the course ready for the following summer, and that is their big challenge. That is their big stressor, and that's the thing that keeps them up at night. So talking about different making a lawn plan for the spring is very important. Get yourself a journal, get yourself do notes on your phone, do whatever, do little videos for yourself, but making some sort of plan for the spring can be really helpful, and especially with all the product shortages now too. If you can make yourself a plan, and then you can kind of purchase stuff as you see it go on sale, as you see it in stock, that makes it a lot easier too. As trying to purchase grass seed come late August has become more of a game at this point than it is a reality. Most stores, by the time the end of July rolls around, they're already converting into winter, and they're blowing out all their lawn stuff, and some of them don't even have grass seed anymore. So definitely something to think about if you're planning a renovation for this fall. Start getting your lawn ready now. Start planning now. This is the time to get things rolling, because although it is spring, before we know it, the end of the season will be rolling around, and we'll be sitting here in winter talking about getting ready for next spring. So another thing, we can talk about different spring lawn strategies. So what did you do to your lawn in the fall is the most important thing when it comes to spring lawn strategies. Scott's kind of changed the terms and terminology of fall fertilizer into winterizer. And in the end, that's not really what it's for. As I said, what you do in the fall is all for the following summer. The reason why you are pushing that nitrogen in the fall is to grow those roots. That is the most important thing. The fall is the best time for root growth. And why are you growing roots? Well, because deeper, stronger, more healthy roots will help keep your lawn more drought, disease, and weed resistant in the summer when it is dry and there's less nutrients in the soil. Those deep roots will keep digging for soil like a very long straw, and we'll find the water somewhere in that soil, and we'll keep bringing it up to your lawn. So that's why we always talk about watering deep and infrequent too. Deep roots is a very good thing. So what did you do in the fall? Did you put a lot of nitrogen down? And for me, for my front and side lawn, the answer is yes. So if the answer is yes, you put down, almost a full pound of N down in the fall, then you're pretty safe for the spring. If you're on my liquid program, start by doing some straight line, some baseline, maybe a little bit of humic. That will help push you into the spring. Those small doses of nitrogen are going to help give you that little bit of a boost that you might need in the spring to get through some of the winter damage. It's going to help give you a nice color. It's going to help, thicken up any thin spots, and it's going to help overall strengthen your lawn. But then you need to kind of pull the wheels off until, I would say, about May 2-4 weekend, Memorial Day weekend. You could push a little heavier with the nitrogen. You can put the foot on the gas pedal a little bit, accelerate up to 60, get it going, and then you're going to take your foot right off, and then you're good for the summer, and you will be good because you put that work in the fall. Now, for my friends who didn't get a lawn care till this year, things got busy, they didn't get time to get the work done in the fall. Or like me, for some reason, you did it in the front and back, but you didn't do it, or you did it in the front and side, but you didn't do it in the back. You are now in a position where you're playing catch up. So you're trying to get your lawn set up for the spring, or for the summer in the spring, and you've completely missed the fall season. So what you need to be doing is you need to be pushing growth at a slower rate, slowly throughout the spring. So I don't want to see, you throwing down a pound of N on, April 1st, and you're throwing a pound of N down like every month, April, May, June, July, and then that's it. Because, as I said, that's just promoting a ton of shoot growth, and shoot growth doesn't do anything for you. As soon as you cut those shoots off with your lawnmower, especially if you're bagging your clippings, you're removing all that nutrients and all that fertilizer you just put down. That $100 you just spent on fertilizer, you're putting in a compost bag, and the garbage man's taking it away. So not only are you paying for it to put it down, but you're paying to get rid of it. And even if you're mulching, the return of nutrients you get from your mulch is obviously not as much as you put in, as some of that energy is spent creating that growth. So what I would recommend, if you're on my liquid program, put down the baseline product every 2 weeks. I would say all spring, starting at the very beginning of the spring, all spring, hitting it with baseline. That will help give you, I believe baseline is like 14% nitrogen. So if you're putting down every 2 weeks, that means every month you're getting like a quarter pound in. That's going to help give you a little bit more of a push. That'll hopefully get some root growth going, and then you can get going, get ready for the summer. And another great thing, if you didn't get that fertilizer down in the fall, your roots are not going to be as established. You're going to probably need to water a little bit more in the summer. So that's another thing to think about. Because you didn't do that, that's kind of a cause and effect situation, and that's something you're gonna have to keep in your mind. So those are kind of the two major different spring strategies. Obviously, as I said, everybody needs to make a spring lawn plan that can be tailored directly to what they're doing, aka this spot, it's all situational depending on where you live, what your backyard looks like, and all that stuff. So without further ado, I think that's it for the in-depth tips section. Let's head on to the final segment of the show, successes and failures. All right, so successes and failures. Let's talk about what I did, which is a big failure, is last fall, I did not put down enough N in my backyard, period. I think I had said on the Turf Cap I think on the podcast that it was with Ryan DeMay, I accidentally said that I put down N on my backyard, but what I really meant was I put down N on my front and my side. I have not touched the backyard. The last application of fertilizer it got was the long weekend in September. Labor Day weekend, it hasn't been touched since. So that was a mistake on my end, and I know I'm going to be paying for that this spring and this summer. I know it. And the reason why I'm paying for it is because, as I said, the fall is just the best time to push roots and to strengthen your lawn for the spring. And if you don't do it in the fall, you're going to have those problems in the spring. And I know that I'm going to pay for it. But in the end, what really happened was I just got busy and I got lazy and I didn't get it done. And I did what I say to everybody not to do, is as soon as October rolled around, I took the my foot off the brake and I just coasted straight to the end of the lawn care season, and I should have had my foot on the accelerator, getting ready for the next spring. So that's something I'm gonna have to work with this year. In a single essence, it is kind of a good thing, as it allows me to make some content on something that I normally wouldn't do. But it is a failure on my part. I should have done it. I didn't do it just because I got lazy and I got complacent and I got too comfortable. And I know that it's probably going to cause me some problems this year. So, but that happens to all of us. And sometimes, you just life gets in the way, and it causes more problems in the end. But it is good to know that it's not just you, it's life, and there's nothing you can do about it. But it's going to keep you in shape if you stay on top of things. So that's why I'm talking about making your lawn plan for this spring. If you have a plan and you know what you have to do, you can plan out. I'm going to the cottage this weekend, but I can put down the application on Thursday. With granular fertilizer, it's always best to kind of look at the weather, put down the application. If there's going to be a rainy day the next day, that rain, always watering in the application is best. Plenty of different things like that. You never want to be worked into a corner where you go, I got to put down like 3 bags of fertilizer in the next 3 weeks before the summer comes, and I'm screwed. Because that's when you start to panic, and that's when more mistakes are made, and that's when the emails start coming in about people freaking out. What did I do? Blah, blah. There's no need to worry. It happens to all of us, and just because I didn't do that fertilizer application in the fall doesn't mean that I'm totally screwed and I'm totally pooched for this lawn season. I have plenty of opportunities to make it up, make it better throughout the entire lawn season. So without further ado, I think that's it for this episode of the Great Green North podcast. If you like these podcast episodes, make sure to leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you want to talk about. If you have a question, as always, submit it through my website, greatgreennorthlawncare.ca, or my email, greatgreennorthlawncare@gmail.com. As always, more great YouTube videos coming out every week, as well as a podcast here on Spotify or wherever you're listening every month. Thank you guys for watching. Keep growing your lawn, and as always, keep it green. The Great Green North podcast is written and hosted by Wade Murray. You can find Great Green North on Instagram, Facebook, and on YouTube. We have great lawn tips coming out, new videos every week, plus a new podcast episode every month. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on whatever podcast platform you're on so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking for more great lawn tips, make sure you go find us on YouTube, or you can check us out on our website, greatgreennorthlawncare.ca.